The roar of 6 motorcycles echoed through our quiet cul-de-sac, flanking a gleaming 1969 Mustang on a flag-wrapped trailer. My mom dropped to her knees. My dad, who hadn't stood fully upright since the funeral, walked forward like a man returning from war. And as I slid into the driver's seat, the engine rumbled to life. Reborn from the ashes they left behind, I didn't move for a full 5 minutes after they drove away. I just stood there, heart pounding in my ears like a war drum, staring at the gaping wound in the driveway where his car used to be. The oil stain on the concrete looked darker than usual, like it knew. Like it missed him too. My hands were still trembling, fingers curled into fists so tight my knuckles went bone white. The coffee cup had shattered on the porch steps. I hadn't even noticed dropping it. My brother's Mustang wasn't just metal and paint. That car was him. His sweat, his hours, his laughs echoing from under the hood, his goddamn soul baked into the leather seats. Every bolt he tightened was a promise. That one day, he'd drive it to the coast. That he'd make it past this town. That he'd live. Instead, some bureaucratic bastard with a clipboard decided it was an eyesore. Like grief had a deadline. Like memories had to be out of sight or they were a nuisance. Like my brother's death had an expiration date and we'd missed it. I stormed inside. My parents were in the kitchen. Mom was washing the same dish for the 4th time, her eyes glazed, movements robotic. Dad sat at the table, staring blankly at the wall like he couldn't quite figure out what had just happened. "They took it," I said. My voice cracked. "They really took it." My dad blinked. "The Mustang?" "They just rolled up. Didn't even knock." His jaw clenched. His lips twitched like he wanted to speak, but all he managed was a nod. Quiet, hollow. And in that moment something shifted in me. Not sadness, not even grief. Those had already hollowed me out. No, this was different. This was rage. Cold and precise. The kind of rage that carves through apathy and turns mourning into purpose. I didn't know the rules. I didn't care about bylaws or citations or whatever power trip the HOA was riding. All I knew was this. They crossed a line, and I was going to make them wish they hadn't. The HOA office was inside a prefab building with beige vinyl siding and a plastic sign that read Community Affairs in Comic Sans. Like the tragedies they processed were part of some child's cartoon. Inside, it smelled like stale printer paper and lemon cleaner. The kind of place where humanity went to die beneath laminated rules and expired candy bowls. I didn't sit. I didn't smile. I didn't speak until I had to. My boots squeaked once against the linoleum. Diane looked up with the air of someone already tired of your problem, even before you opened your mouth. I told her my brother was dead. I told her they took his car without notice. I told her it was all we had left. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then tilted her head, as if she were struggling to remember if dead people counted as valid exemptions. You can't store non-operational vehicles in plain sight. Section 4.2.2 of the Community Preservation Code. I handed her the death certificate. She took it with 2 fingers, like it might be contagious, skimmed it without reading, and slid it back toward me like a restaurant check. "Still an eyesore," she repeated. Her voice was dry, perfectly flat. Like this wasn't someone's brother, someone's son, someone's whole fucking world. Just an abandoned shell of metal disrupting property values. The kind of object they talk about in terms of curb appeal and aesthetic compliance. There hadn't been a phone call, no email, no door hanger, just theft, dressed up in policy. When I got home and told my mom, she stood perfectly still for 6 seconds before dropping the mug she was holding. It shattered across the tiles, and she didn't even flinch. Then she sat down and wept. Not loudly. No, it was worse. Soft, restrained sobs. The kind of crying that doesn't want to make noise because it knows nobody's coming to help. My father stood in the hallway like a ghost of himself. His shoulders didn't slump. They collapsed. Then, without a word, he turned and drove his fist into the wall beside the pantry. The sound of the drywall giving way was louder than the impact. Later, I found my brother's dog lying under the kitchen table, unmoving. His food untouched, his tail still. Everything felt wrong, violated, stripped bare. This wasn't just pain. It was desecration masquerading as regulation. And they were going to answer for it. I didn't sleep that night. Grief had carved out a void in me, but now something fierce filled it. Something with weight. Purpose. Not blind revenge, but precision. Justice. I started with my brother's papers. Buried in a manila folder under his bed, I found the flyer for the ride. Coastline Run, honoring our fallen. A memorial convoy for veterans who died in active duty. My brother had registered 3 weeks before his death. The confirmation email was still in his inbox. He never got the chance to go. That was my in. I read federal law until my eyes burned. Cross-checked case histories. Called lawyers, veterans, organizers. That's when I found 18 USC Sabers 247, desecration of memorial property tied to religious or commemorative significance. I read the statute a dozen times, then a dozen more. My hands shook as I realized this wasn't just moral. This was legal. The car wasn't just a relic. It was protected. I tracked down the event coordinator, a grizzled biker named Hank Lydell, with a voice like gravel and a heart like gold. When I told him who I was, he didn't hesitate. Sent over scanned paperwork, time-stamped emails, even a photo of my brother posing beside the Mustang, smiling in his vest with a patch that read, "For those who never got home." That image hit like a brick to the chest. I printed everything, built a binder, labeled sections. Then I combed through the HOA bylaws until I hit gold. Article 6, subsection D. All removals of property require written notice to the owner. There had been no notice, no knock, no warning. They didn't just disrespect us, they broke their own rules. I sent the entire packet to 20 different attorneys. 19 gave me canned answers. The 20th? Alicia Perez, former JAG officer, now a federal prosecutor in the district's Civil Rights Division, lost her brother in Afghanistan. When she called me back, her voice was calm. Too calm. "Let's make this loud," she said. Within a week, she had drafted a federal injunction. When it hit the HOA board, it was like thunder in a conference room. But the real moment, the one that lit fire in my chest, was when their president, Gerald Tuckman, got served at his son's birthday party, surrounded by balloon animals and confused toddlers. He thought the guy walking up in a blazer was the magician, but the cameras were from 60 Minutes. And the trick was justice. The courthouse was packed, but the silence when the judge read the verdict was deafening. No gavel slam, no dramatic outburst. Just the sound of truth settling into the bones of everyone present like the first inhale after a storm. Guilty. On all counts. Violation of federal protection statutes. Civil rights infringement. Willful destruction of commemorative property. The headlines would talk about the fines, the $250,000 slapped on Gerald Tuckman like a branding iron, about how he was forced to resign live on Channel 6, stuttering through a half-hearted apology under studio lights, his comb-over wilted and shirt collar damp with sweat. He looked smaller than I remembered, powerless. But none of that held a candle to what came next. 2 months to the day. It started with a distant rumble. At first I thought it was a storm, but it was too clean, too deliberate. Not thunder. Engines. Deep, growling, synchronized like a war hymn. I stepped outside, barefoot again, but this time, not in panic. Down our cul-de-sac came 6 motorcycles in formation. Veterans, each one wearing leather vests peppered with patches, silver hair shining in the sun like medals. Behind them, on a custom trailer wrapped in a flag, was the Mustang. But not the ghost of it. Not the broken, chain-scratched shell the HOA had dragged away. No, this one gleamed. Fresh chrome, polished rims, paint so deep it looked like a midnight sky. The seat had been reupholstered. The steering wheel engraved with a plaque. In honor of Jason Reed, son, brother, hero. I didn't cry. Not until my mom did. She touched the hood like it was holy. Her lips moved, but no sound came. My dad walked up and placed one hand on her shoulder. His other went to the car, rough fingers brushing the metal like he was checking a pulse. And for the first time in months, he stood tall, spine straight, chest high. I opened the door. The hinge didn't squeak. I slid behind the wheel. The engine turned over on the first try. It growled. Alive. And for just a moment, I wasn't alone. I could feel him there, in the rumble, in the sunlight on the dash, in the way the rear-view mirror caught the sky just right. Jason. Laughing. Free.